This episode of Harvey Brownstone Interviews is brought to you by the Harvey Brownstone Talk Show Blend Coffee, available at hollywoodblends.com. Everyone's saying it's the best coffee they've ever tasted. Why not give it a try and see for yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Harvey Brownstone, and today's special guest is a beloved actress who is perhaps best known for her portrayal of undercover agent Cinnamon Carter on the classic TV series Mission Impossible, for which she became the first actress in television history to receive 3 consecutive Emmy Awards for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. She also received a Golden Globe Award nomination and a Photoplay Award nomination for Best Female TV Star. She also created the iconic role of Dr. Helena Russell in the classic British science fiction series Space 1999 and the made-for-TV movies Alien Attack, Destination Moonbase Alpha, Cosmic Princess, and Journey Through the Black Sun. And over the years, we've seen her in dozens of TV shows, including The Dick Van Dyke Show, Perry Mason, Get Smart, Moonlighting, Murder, She Wrote, Diagnosis Murder, CSI, and many more. Her movie credits include Savage, Skinheads, Panic, Bel Air, Trapped, Political Disasters, Nothing Special, On the Rocks, American Gun, for which she received a DVD exclusive award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, and 3 of my favorite short films, Reconnected, for which she received a Best Actress nomination at the Madrid International Film Festival, Take My Hand, for which she won 3 prestigious Film Festival awards, and Pacific Edge, for which she won Best Actress awards at the Golden Door International Film Festival and the Los Angeles Independent Film Festival. And I cannot resist mentioning her hilarious performance as Dr. Olga Schmetner in the 1981 TV movie The Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island. On the stage, she's won Los Angeles Critics Circle and Drama Logue Awards for her performances in Wings, Happy Days, and The Chairs. And in 2016, she received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And if all of that weren't enough, our guest founded a children's literacy program through the Screen Actors Guild called Book Pals, which initially had hundreds of actors reading to school children in major cities across America. And now it's an online program called Storyline Online, so kids all over the world can choose a famous actor to read them a story. I am delighted and honored to welcome Miss Barbara Bain to our show. Barbara, thank you so much for being here.
Well, it's my pleasure. And hearing all that, I've had a great go at all of it. You bring up the literacy situation. Yes, it's something I've cared about my whole life. I'm a reader. I was a kid who spent my life reading, and I continue to do so. I'm concerned because kids aren't reading as much. I started it over 20 years ago, and we at that time were in the classroom with the kids, and went nationwide, and then it went worldwide because of the internet. Last time I checked, it was reaching getting what they call hits, 4 million hits a month. Storyline Online, kids all over the world. And I hear from teachers and people the power of television at its best is remarkable. All the things I've done, I'm very proud of my work. Don't misunderstand me. I love the work. I still love it. I'm still doing it. And one of the proudest things is that program for me.
Oh, it truly is something that will always be part of your legacy. I find it interesting, Barbara, because when you were growing up in Chicago, you spent a lot of time at the library because you loved reading books. You also spent a lot of time at the Art Institute because you loved art. Were you in love with the movies as well?
No, I didn't go to movies. First of all, they were fairly expensive. I think the one in the neighborhood cost a nickel when I was a kid, long time ago. But movies were, we were in the Depression at the time. My mother called almost everything except food, a sweater, and a lodging. Everything else was called extra. There's a whole long column of extra. And that's what one had to do at that time. I was born right in the middle of it. Okay, there it was. So no, I wasn't a movie person. I had no idea about being an actor or actress, none of that. And I didn't know what I was doing at the Art Institute. I just found this building. I walked into it one day. I was very, I don't know, on my own. I walked in, I saw this extraordinary building. It was so beautiful. And Chicago itself wasn't very pretty to me. The sidewalks are dirty and the people were noisy, and a lot of fairly dramatic, unpleasant things happen in the streets. But I walked into that building and I was overwhelmed with I saw these pictures on the wall. I was very shy, believe it or not, at that time. I just sat there, went from room to room. I had no idea what I was doing there. I didn't know you could draw. I didn't know anything. I just sat there, a skinny little kid looking at these wonders. And in retrospect, the reason I'm so kind of in tune to kids and exposure to what they're exposed to, in retrospect, I realized that it told me that there was something wonderful in the world to reach for. I couldn't have articulated it. Somebody poked me and said, "What are you doing here?" I would have said, "I don't know," because I didn't know.
When you were a young kid, what were you dreaming of being when you grew up?
I wanted to be a teacher because I loved my teacher. I had her both for first and second grade. I adored her. She was very kind to me. The teachers always were, because I was a smart kid. They liked that. So I loved school. I loved the process of learning. The whole, almost viscerally, the thing about learning was very exciting to me. The library, you mentioned that as well. Now, when I went to the public library, we had books in the home. There were books. So I knew about books very early. I went to the library and I got this card. It was yellow. I could see it today. It was bright taxi cab yellow. It had my name on it. It made me an official person. I was very, very proud of that card. Look at me. I'm a person here, folks. And as soon as you can write, you can get a library card. So, but it was a very different time. The librarian at that place said to me, "Oh, you can't read those books." Well, why not? Well, they're boys' books. Oh, well, why can't I read them? Well, they're adventure books. Oh, okay, I'm not supposed to have adventures, evidently. Dr. Dolittle, all those fun books were over there. So I read them all with one of these from her. I thought, and I said to her, "I'm gonna read every book in the library," and she laughed. And one can't. Those were what I was thinking about. I wasn't thinking about much else except trying to understand something about anything. A kid, you know. We weren't very much encouraged to ask questions at the time. So the dialogue was with me and me. The adults were busy. If you wanted to ask questions weren't kind of teachers, of parents. You didn't ask questions. You were supposed to sit there, be quiet, fold your hands, cross your legs, and be nice.
You graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in sociology, and then somewhere along the way you fell in love with dancing.
It was at the University of Illinois.
And you studied dance with Martha Graham.
I did.
And then you switched from dancing to studying acting with Lee Strasberg. What made you switch to acting from dancing?
Well, it was very interesting. I fell in love, and it is still my first passion, dance. And I still take a dance class. I love what's trying to happen in a dance studio, as opposed to a gym where it's all about muscles. there's something wonderful trying to happen in a dance class. Something that the human body isn't supposed to be doing, like getting up off the floor and flying through the air. You're not supposed to do that, but we try to. Little on the music, everything about it. It's always been a refuge for me. And I still love everything about it, except that I can't do much of it anymore, but I do what I can and enjoy that fully. I mean, I certainly can't get my leg up here anymore. It doesn't matter anymore, just so I can keep moving. And I think it's very valuable for anyone to keep moving all through your life, because I think it has helped me sustain a long, long life.
But what made you switch to acting?
Well, I didn't switch. Dance, I went to dance. The minute I found that, I knew what I wanted to do. I got on a plane with, I think, $100 the most in my pocket, and went to New York to study with Graham. That's what I had a leotard. My hair was pulled back very tight. It was terribly serious, and it was a serious event. She was a serious woman. It wasn't kind of that kind of work. It was very, very deep and very interesting. And the time in New York at that time, we began to only dance for it. The whole audience was starting to slip away. It had heightened, and it was kind of, so we were dancing for each other mostly at the YMHA Uptown in New York. You look out, there's always dancers out there. It was hard to build audiences. I took class with all the wonderful teachers around, an A-League class of just everything. I loved it all, but pretty soon it was a very interesting moment for me. People kept saying, be an actress. I said, I'm not an actress. I'm a dancer. I'm a dancer. Okay. It got harder. I started late. I thought, I'm never going to be really what I'm trying to do here. It got very sad. And I spent some time thinking. I had to not do it because it was losing its meaning to me, and that was very painful. So to leave it, to not be there, not pursue that idea, took a lot of thinking on my part. And somebody said, come to this acting class. I said, oh, I'll see what it's like. And and the teacher got me up on the stage. I had no idea what I was doing because I was supposed to talk. The music did it. Now I had to talk and move. Wait. Oh. I was absolutely hopeless, but fascinated, because there's a piece of me that's a little perverse. If it's hard, I like it. If it's easy, my schooling, it was always easy. So I always felt I hadn't done anything. And the teachers were so excited and I get all these A's. But so what? It took me 3 minutes and I could do it. And it didn't feel like I did anything. Why were they jumping up and down and treating me so royally? Acting was hard for me. And I loved that. And I stayed in classes for a year and a half. Because I knew I couldn't do it. I wasn't a natural born actress, but I was damned if I wasn't going to figure this out. I was very, very strong-willed. A year and a half later, I went out for the first auditions, 1, 2, 3. Theater, television, all three, and a movie, everything. Got all my cards and never stopped working. One, I never ever had to lift a tray or do anything else again except that. So it's just been glorious.
It really has been glorious. And for someone who's not a natural actress, you sure fooled the whole world. But what would you say was the most important thing you learned from Lee Strasberg?
There's no way to explain it. He was a genius. He was a master teacher, as was Martha. I wish every young artist in every field is exposed to a master teacher. It's hard to explain. He He invented a lot of things. He was very specific with each person. And there were a lot of things he helped me with. And there was another teacher called Lonnie Chapman, who was a wonderful actor. And he was at the Actors Studio as well. He was as brilliant as Lee, but he was also kind. Lee didn't have time for being kind. He was kind to the girls better than to the boys, and he was very nice to me, so I had no complaint. But all these teachers had different things to offer me. I couldn't say what one thing was or another, except nobody kicked me out of class. Nobody said, "What are you doing here?" And Lonnie, particularly, any crumb I came up with, he celebrated, he encouraged. He was that kind of person. Beautiful, beautiful person. And Lee also was very demanding. So what he wanted was, well, I'll tell you. I mean, I think about it or try to, because it makes some sense here to any audience. I was drawn to all the, "Oh dear, my baby died, my house is on fire," those roles. And after you do anything or did anything in his class, he would say, "Well, you do that well. I don't want to see it ever again. You do that. We want to get into things you don't know how to do." So this is kind of interesting. He said to me, "I don't want to see you crying again and weeping over your house burned down," or whatever it was. And he said to me, "You look like you've got the world on a string. Now you have to learn how to play it." Oh, I didn't see myself the way I was seen. So I had to, when I first did Mission was a character role for me. I'm not that girl. I wasn't that cool, that assured, any of those things. I had to bring that to that role.
But you know what I don't understand, really?
Yes.
The very first 3 auditions you had as an actress, you got the parts. Did you not realize that you are a very gifted natural actress?
No, of course not. I was scared. I was primarily, I'm not competitive with other people. I'm very demanding for myself. So the argument was always, did I do what I set out to do? Did I accomplish that? Why did I not do that thing? Why? So there was also always an inner struggle for a number of years. But meanwhile, when I look at the work I did, it's pretty damn good. And even when I was very young and I see those, I don't see them much, but every once in a while I see something I did. Oh, that was pretty good. Why? Because I was led by these teachers to think creatively and trust my imagination. It's very hard to do because primarily it's taken away from us. By the time we're 6, we're kind of organized for society. We have to behave. If you're caught daydreaming, oh, mustn't do that. All those areas where we kind of have that fluidity of thought are organized into a fairly restricted form so that we can have a society and people aren't, if I want to clobber you, I'll just clobber you. I can't do that anymore after 6. So, or steal your crayons. I mean, I can't do those things. Though that's the impulse. So where do all those impulses go? They just disappear and we don't have touch with them anymore. So the actor has to bring all that very visceral kind of, right now, I want to, whatever it is to that with this other actor, it has to be available. Lee created a bunch of exercises that gave you that permission to be free in your own imagination. So you would think about it here, but began to find it in the rest of you. So it didn't stay heady. It didn't stay an idea. It got to be alive. And that's what we do, which is kind of weird. We create a state where for that much time, I have to just about 100%, not quite, because there's a part of me knows what I'm doing. And the difference between us and the people who have gone off, the rails, are they don't know they're doing it. We know it's a technical state. It's a something achieved by creating something, putting something in motion. And I know, plays end, I go home. This is the time I'm doing it. It's good to know that.
Well, yes, because that's what keeps you grounded. You mentioned Mission Impossible, which of course made you a superstar. But I understand that the final stage of the audition, you had to be approved by Lucille Ball because she owned Desilu Studios. What was it like to audition for her?
I didn't audition for her. All I had to do, I was asked to go and meet with her. First, my agents called and said, we're going to send some film. They used to do that. They don't do that anymore. And I had just done a comedy. I said, don't send her a comedy, please. That's what she does. I don't want to, no, can I just go meet her? So they set up a meeting. I still remember that drive to the studio. It was on the lot, which was then Desilu. And she had this little bungalow. And I walked in and she looked at me. Looks all right to me, she said.
That's it?
That was it.
You see, even that came easy to you. Even that, Barbara.
I flew out of there, and the interesting thing was Bruce Geller, who created Mission, had seen me in an acting class. He wrote that part for me, but he didn't tell me that because he couldn't guarantee that I would get it. Because everybody kept saying, well, who is she? We don't know her. I had done about 20, I don't know how many, guest stars. As you mentioned, a number, a lot. But they still want, I wasn't a big name. I wasn't a name. And he kept saying, well, see her. So all the people that went in, I kept being there. Ultimately, he told me afterwards, he said he had, I don't know if you're aware of this as well, he wrote the part for Martin, that same class. And the part was originally called Martin Land. And the network said it's too close to the actor. So it was changed to Roland Hand because it fit the typeface.
Well, when I look at your performance in Mission Impossible, the thing that was really groundbreaking, it's not just that Cinnamon Carter was beautiful and sexy. She was really smart. She was highly skilled. She was an independent woman who was absolutely equal to her male colleagues, definitely not a dumb blonde or a housewife. I think you had one of the very best roles at that time for a woman in television.
Ever, including the fact that the glamorous part of Cinnamon, and then I played a different role every week. And that was a dream. And Bruce told the writers, just write it. Whatever you write, she can do it. Okay.
Well, the impression you gave me in your portrayal of Cinnamon was that the role was not really a stretch for you, that you were very comfortable playing an independent professional woman. Am I right?
No, that part was part of my nature. I'm very strong-willed. I wasn't going to listen to that librarian and tell me I couldn't read the boys' books. So in terms of have a sense of the fact that women had to have a place, I owned that. Though I was pushing against it because there weren't very many places. I was told by my typing teacher in high school, who one day threw the book at me and said, you don't have to learn to type, you'll sit on the boss's lap.
Are you kidding?
she would not be able to teach today. And I was so angry that somebody would say that to me. I'm going to sit on anybody's lap. I knew that then, but you couldn't respond. You couldn't say anything back. It wasn't allowed. This was a public school, mind you, not a Catholic school. It sounds a little more like a religious school. No, it was a public school. Which, by the way, in every other class, I got a very good education in a public school in Chicago. But that was the thinking. So Bruce wrote this strong person, and the effect on women was, to this day, I get letters from somebody who said, I saw that show when I was young, and it made me want to be an astronaut. I'm just now retiring from NASA. Things like that from all over the world, from women who said, I never felt I could do, so I tried so-and-so. I became an engineer. I get letters like that. And because I'm living as long, which is another surprise, I've witnessed from the beginning to retirement of people, particularly women, who were young girls, were told they couldn't do anything except be a secretary, a teacher, housewife.
Well, were you aware when you were playing Cinnamon and also Dr. Helena Russell? Did you realize that you were inspiring young girls out there to consider pursuing high-level professional careers?
No, I knew it by Dr. Russell because of what happened on Mission. So I knew it from Mission Impossible that was happening. That people were women, just women, girls, were inspired.
What a beautiful thing.
Incredible.
You know, I heard you say once in an interview that Mission Impossible was one of the times in your career when you felt most respected as an actress, especially by the writers.
Well, the writer, you know, I played a lot of dumb blondes. That was what I played prior. I'm not a dumb blonde, folks. I didn't like the idea, but I had to find a way to get to who they thought they were, who they liked to, who they wanted to be, and why they were living with the head of the mob or whatever it was, you know? I didn't have a lot of respect in my own viewpoint for people who took that path. But I had to find why. I had to find, and I had a teacher, again, wonderful teacher. I've been helped along the way. He said, you can't play a part outside of it. You've got to get inside. And with a dumb blonde, you can't separate from her. You got to find your way in her. And he said, the way to do that, pick the character up. His name was Kurt Conway. He said, pick her up tenderly. Oh, here's this girl who thinks she's got it made, but she doesn't. Oh, here's this girl. Why is she sitting there waving at everybody, trying to be important? It was a wonderful little peek into what to do. So, as I say, I've been inspired by many people that I'm deeply grateful for. And now I spend a fair amount of time with younger people, means almost everybody, but I feel like, and I'm mentoring any number of younger people.
Boy, are they ever fortunate to be mentored by someone with such a history. You know, the writing on Mission Impossible was so meticulous. The plots were so intricate, kind of like a puzzle within a puzzle.
Yes.
Do you think Bruce Geller had an easy time to find writers who could write like that?
He did at first, and he wrote every one for a while. It was very difficult. Bruce was an extremely interesting man. And, you know, we were all peers together in a certain way. And he came to class because the class I was in, which was taught by Martin at the time, who was a wonderful teacher, wanted writers in there so they could see what we do. And he'd get them up on the stage, which of course was hysterical that they could not be on, they would want to hide in the corner. But Bruce was a very, for a Hollywood person, this was as excited as Bruce ever got. Well,
That's it?
He never said much. He was just very strong about his ideas and about his clarity, about how it had to be. And it was having a producer that I think it was the first season, I got called off the set. You have a minute, we need you to come down and loop something, put in the sound, redo the sound on something. I got down there, it was I thought, oh boy, am I in good hands? If he's worried about that, let alone everything else. And he was meticulous. So when the shooting schedules were long, and they would come down from the network and say, can't you cut it? And he'd go, and do what he wanted.
What a brilliant man. You know, there's a very famous episode of Mission Impossible called The Exchange,
Yes.
where Cinnamon suffers from claustrophobia.
Yes.
Is it true that they took that idea from your real personality?
Yes.
That you also have claustrophobia?
Yes. I lived with it my whole life and found a way with it. I used to be very embarrassed about the whole thing, but then I found out, the beginning of finding it out was doing that show. Now, of course, when you're shooting, the camera has to be there, so it was open. So I had to play what I know, which is being cut in smaller spaces, which was, Bruce wrote it for me. And people all over the world, because I traveled a lot, and I'd be in airports, and they'd come up to me and they'd say, you know that show about and they get upset telling me, when you get caught and you were getting, well, they're claustrophobics all over the world talking to me in airports, saying, oh, that was so real. I can't tell you. So I began to think, well, it's not so odd and horrible, and I have to go hide in the corner. It was caused by something I know, but it doesn't seem to leave me anyway. Though I've done all kinds of things to try to not have it. But there it is. So I do a lot of stairs. I don't go in elevators. If I have to, I will. But I have to kind of prep myself to do. Well, I did have Beckett's Happy Days. Samuel Beckett's Happy Days. A lady is in a mound of earth up to here. The second act, and all alone. Her husband's up there, never had season. Second act, she's up to here in that sand mound. So I had to crawl under a stage, crawl into the set, lock. They had to have a piece to lock it and a thing to hold on to. But when they asked me to do the play, it's the hardest play in the literature. There are two of them, probably Queen Anne and Richard. And A Long Day's Journey is considered, I've done all those roles, which I love.
And you were able to do it even with the claustrophobia.
I decided, once I knew I was going to do it, once I made the commitment, the rehearsal period, if it's a big surprise, it's worse. In other words, if something happens where I have to go suddenly, but if I can adjust to it, take a little time, I can edge up to it. The same way when I fly, about 2 weeks before, I fly that airplane every day and get ready to do it. And I can. I'm goal oriented. There has to be a reason I want to go. I just did a wonderful role in New Jersey, which I have signed a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk about it. But I loved the role. It was complex, and it was a wonderful situation. So I got on an airplane.
I can't wait to see it. You know, I know that a lot of people want to know the answer to this question.
Oh,
You had the most beautiful wardrobe on Mission Impossible. Did you get to keep all those outfits?
I never kept anything from the set. They were part of that. I left the studio. And by the way, that was the genius of a woman named Sabine Manila. Sabine was a Viennese person who probably came to Hollywood to be an actress, but ended up wardrobe person. She wasn't even a designer. She was a wardrobe person, which meant a very hard job. And I had a lot of difficult things for this show because they'd be doubles or triples because they'd pour water on me. So you have to have another one, things like that. But she shopped, and then we fitted it, made it even better together. She was really good. Most of it was fairly inexpensive, but I knew how to wear it. I knew how to wear clothes because I'd spent a number of years in New York modeling for some of the top, to pay for my dance classes. I could model, and I worked with some of the most extraordinary designers of the day. And I learned an awful lot about, I could design, so I don't know how to make it. I can't do the next step, but I have an eye and an understanding of what it's about. And in that time, it was very, very haute couture type stuff. And I really learned wonderful stuff. So I knew what to do and still do. I'm happy when I have one of the first things I do with a role, I have to costume her in my head. Who is this lady? And usually if I can, I love to see what the set's going to look like. Because, for instance, I did that film, gorgeous film with Donald Sutherland, Panic it was called, I think. Anyway, it was beautifully written. But I went in fast and I said to them, they already had the set up. And I said, can I see the set? Because the scene was going to take place in the bedroom. And I know the woman always does the house. So I wanted to see what the house looked like so I know how she dressed. So those things always fascinate me. They're part of it. Because I dress in a particularly eclectic way that pleases my eye. Has nothing to do with the characters I play, generally. So I'm on the brink of doing another film. I've just been puzzling through, what does this lady put on in the morning? Because everybody makes choices when they dress themselves. And those choices come out of the idea the person has of themselves, obviously. So we all know that, but often somebody else is doing it. I need to work with that person.
Now, Barbara, on the day that you won your third Emmy Award, you found out that you were being sued by Paramount for breach of contract, even though they were the ones in breach of contract, not you.
Yes.
And we never got to see you on Mission Impossible again. You and your husband, Martin, both left the show. Wasn't there some kind of misunderstanding that happened?
Oh, it was major misunderstanding, primarily because Martin did not have a contract. He was on a year-to-year basis. And some new people took over the thing and were trying to do the budget, down. I had a contract. So they were having a difficulty with him, and they treated us like a married couple, which we were. But in terms of work, we weren't. I had a different representative, a different lawyer, all of it, different PR people. We both had our own groups, but they actually saw us together and were sure that I wasn't going to show up. Of course I was going to show up. I had a contract. So the day before the Emmys, I guess it was just a day or so, I think, or the same day before, I was shooting a public service commercial for cancer and using all the makeup hair people for a mission, and they knew where I was. And they gave me what's called a forced wardrobe call. They said I had to come in immediately for wardrobe. It was all a hocus pocus craziness. It was to try to trap me, but I didn't know that at all. And the next thing is they sued me for breach because I couldn't go on a wardrobe call. I was shooting this public service announcement with all the people from Mission. It was ugly, very sad. I couldn't work for a year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it took a year.
1 year.
Before you were able to work. Why was Paramount not able to understand that you wanted to continue on the show, even though Martin did not?
Well, he did not. He would have done another year. He just didn't want to sign a long-term contract. If his conditions were, he wanted to make sure Bruce was going to still be there. Once they were cutting, he didn't want to find out that Bruce Geller was not going to be there because he was critical to making it as fine. That's Martin. I whatever showed up, I'd have to do it because I do it my best because I did have a contract. They got themselves in a terrible position for producers. Let me tell you what they got themselves into. In order to win the case against me, they had to prove that I was irreplaceable, which was why they had another girl all the time, another actor. They don't want to prove that, ever. They want to say, oh, next. But that was the center of it's so long ago, by the way. But given that, they were stuck with having to prove that you couldn't replace me, which is never really true. There's always someone to do it. So the lawsuit was a year. And that's when the offer came from England. We said, okay, let's go to England.
How did you like living in England? You were there a year and a half.
It was heaven. Everything about living there was wonderful. Shooting there was different because they had a shorter day. I loved the reason I was happy was the day was shorter so I could have dinner with my kids. Couldn't do that here. It was a 12-hour day, certainly. And everything about the English people, the whole experience was wonderful. My kids were able to, weekends we'd hop over to Athens and they'd see the Parthenon. Okay, pretty neat. It gave me pleasure to be able to take them to all these places, to Rome, where I had been before, where a school trip for them was to go to Mont Saint-Michel, okay, or ski in the Alps. I mean, come on, this was their life. It was so wonderful for them. And then the Pinewood Studios was wonderful. The people were all marvelous. It was quite an experience. In many ways, a joy. It was fascinating. Again, I had to get used to putting that thing on my face, which I didn't like. But again, once I committed it, and I could get out of it. I didn't have to wait for somebody to do it, ever. So, those things I dealt with. And,
So, Barbara, in 1988, there was another Mission Impossible series starring Peter Graves.
Yes.
Would you like to have been part of that show?
No, because of the script.
And what about the movies with Tom Cruise? Did you like those movies?
No, because we were a team. It was a teen show. It was a different show. They wrote it. They did what they set out to do. They took a property, got this kid, Tom Cruise at the time, and made money. That's their point in life. That's what they do. And they did it well for them. But there was nothing that matched except Lalo's music. There was nothing left of what the show was really about. It was an intelligent show about the brain. It wasn't an action show about killing people. We never killed anybody, ever. We bluffed our way through. We got them to kill themselves. So it was much more mind games. And that was Bruce. Bruce had that kind of brain where we'd figure out how we would get them to do something and then leave.
Yes, it was very cerebral for sure. Very cerebral show.
Yes.
Now, I have to ask you, your co-star, of course, in both shows, Mission and Space 1999, was your husband at the time, Martin Landau.
Yes.
What was it like to work with a spouse so intensively for so many years? Is that hard on a marriage?
Well, no, not the work. The work was very good. No, we never had a problem with the work. It was interesting. We didn't have, today I noticed my daughter and son-in-law, they're on the phone all day long. So they never have to say, what was your day like, honey? Because they know. Well, we didn't either because we knew. Everybody else meets at the end of the day after they're exhausted. One's exhausted. The wife wants to talk a lot, evidently. Well, we didn't have that because we knew what the day was like. And I noticed my kids have that and it's a very interesting phenomenon that I watch with this having a phone. While things are happening, you don't have to catch the person up later. It's just little things like that. No, we understood the work. We met working. We met not in work, in New York in class. He was the big shot actor and I was the new girl in town, in essence. And he was extraordinary. And you watch him and say, oh, because he was, and we were in classes together.
Well, I want to ask you about a movie that I just loved you in.
Oh.
It's from 1998. It's about a retirement home. It's called Gideon. And you co-starred with Charlton Heston, Carol O'Connor, Shirley Jones, Shelley Winters, Harvey Korman, Mike Connor. What an amazing cast.
It was fun to do. It was fun. There were many things about it, including the fact that Heston, was so lovely. Anyway, he had to rescue me. There's a scene where he rescued me from the woods. And I have never seen, I had to put my head on his shoulder. And his chest went like another mile that way. And I thought, what is the biggest chest I ever saw in my whole entire life? He was very sweet. And, there were so many fun things in doing it. I knew all those people well. I knew Carol. Carol and I had gone back. We had started with Martin, a bunch of people started another theater group here. I knew, then we were like close friends. We'd been in Rome together. We were very close. And any number of those folks, Harvey was just so funny, you couldn't stop laughing half the time. And I knew him from Carol Burnett's show. So we all there was a camaraderie, which there most of the time is. And I liked making that. Well, I've liked almost everything I've ever done.
I'll tell you, there's another wonderful Barbara Bain performance in a movie. You co-starred with Mariette Hartley, George Hamilton, Howard Hesseman, Valerie Perrine, and Dick Van Patten. The movie was called Silver Skies.
Yes.
And I always thought that should have been made into a TV series. Yes. Don't you think?
I do. There were two of them I thought should be TV series. That one, and Rosemary Rodriguez wrote it. I was called in, even maybe late. I'm not sure if I replaced some, I don't know, but it was late for the shooting time. I was called in about it on a Friday. There was a rape scene in it. I said, I got to talk to you because I'm not doing how are you going to shoot that? And I found out, okay, because I wasn't just, I had to know what they were going to shoot. And then I had wardrobe. I had like 1,000 changes. I had to do Sunday. I shot on Monday. And I had like 8 pages of dialogue the first day. And I was supposed to be in this kitchen that was my kitchen. Wait a minute, the stove opens this way, not this way. Oh, this. Anyway, there was all that. But I like all that. I like when it's hard. I don't know. I'm not, I'm meant to solve problems in some way.
Well, you know, that you've had so many of those wonderful roles. There was a really great movie you did called Bel Air, which was
Oh, Lord.
kind
Yes.
of a tongue-in-cheek takeoff of Sunset Boulevard. Were you channeling Gloria Swanson in that
I
performance?
was handling everything. I just can found the nutsy side of me.
Did you love it?
I love all that. Listen, I did Long Day's Journey, O'Neill's play up in Seattle, uncut, 4 hours. Very beautiful, beautiful love letter to his mother. But I said, my kids call me, aren't you exhausted? I said, no, I'm not exhausted. I get to terrorize this whole family, the whole 4 hours. They're terrified of me. And then people applaud. What's so terrible?
But you seem to have the energy to be able to have this incredible career. You've had enormous longevity. You've never
Yeah.
been typecast. You've never been pigeonholed. You know, you've always had a very diverse opportunity. I mean, here's another one. You worked with Tracy Ullman and Debbie Reynolds in the Trailer Tales.
Yeah.
That must have been a riot.
Well, it was more than a riot because the day before, I had been reading to the kids in a school in an area pretty far out. And on the way out of the classroom, I was skipping down the hall because the kids are, you get an energy. I was reading to kindergarten kids. Those are the kids I read to. And I was just before 4, and I was like that, skipping down the hall, and they just washed the floor. So I shoot and broke 2 fingers.
Oh, Barbara.
And a young kid came along, a street kid from there that had come into the class, older boy, Benny. He said, my baby finger was hanging off my hand this way, sideways. Not good. And he said, I can yank it back into place. I said, are you sure you can? He said, yeah, and he did. I get in the car and drive back like this, holding onto the steering wheel. These are working, these are not. By the time I get to the reason it's important in relation to Tracy Ullman's show, my hand had swollen up and looked like a loaf of white bread, which is a big square object. So I stopped at the hospital, which you don't know, but Cedars. I stopped in, they took me in emergency, and they set my hand. So I had a cast on, and I couldn't get clothes over. So I called Tracy. I said, maybe you have to replace me because I can't get any wardrobe on. There's no way I can get anything over this thing, and then I have a cast. Oh, honey, she said, don't worry. We're shooting in a restaurant. We'll keep it under the table. So I have a broken hand underneath that table in that scene, like that. And then I found out before long that it wasn't set properly. My doctor, and I have to go to a different doctor. He has to re-break it and do it all over again. But I have full mobility because it was well done the second time. But I couldn't get my own shirt on over a cast. So she says, oh, don't worry, honey. We're shooting. And so we shot in this Chinese restaurant. It's well known in the city. And I had my hand under the table.
That's hilarious. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You know, I want to take you back to a very special day, April 28th, 2016. That was the day you received your star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I know that Ed Asner and Dick Van Dyke were both there and they gave beautiful speeches. But what was going through your mind when you saw that star being unveiled?
Well, it's amazing because there's this group of fans who have followed me around through the years. And oddly enough, didn't understand that whole phenomenon at first. I never asked anybody. I didn't get it. And I got to know them. And I've got to be very impressed with these people I really got to know and how they have, through all these different countries and places, look out for each other. They're very close. And they all came together because of me. Okay. So they had asked me before to do a star. And I said, oh, I'm a star. Okay, just give them money because they have to raise a certain amount of money to book Pal. But the second time they asked me, I had that granddaughter. And I thought, well, I don't know. That affected me in some way, in a lot of ways. I said, oh, okay. And they raised the money. They applied to the city of Hollywood. They did it all. And the question that is so amazing, it wasn't that I just had a big picture and the studio did it because that is more likely to happen. No, it was these people who have bonded over me that I somehow have inspired them. But meanwhile, we all know it. Now I know this one's husband, that one's kid. They all look out for each other, from Italy to Japan to Spain to Germany, and of course this. Okay, so now I see it very different. I began to understand a different aspect, and I'm happy whenever I learn something. I like that. It feels good. It's like hard to explain, like a good meal, you know.
Well, you spend a lot of your time mentoring young people.
Yes.
What do you tell them about how to deal with all the rejection and the disappointments in this business?
I'll tell them when I tell them, which is very important, particularly the young women, because I've seen a lot of young women trying to adjust and fit in to what they think that, oh, if only you were blonde, they run home and blonde their hair. Oh, if you were this, if you were fat, if you were skinny. It's nonsense. Don't listen to any of that. The hard thing to do, and it's very hard, is to hold on to yourself in all this coming at you. So what do you have when you go to an audition? Whatever they say is not the point. Did you do what you set out to do? Now, you don't go to an audition anymore. Now you tape it. So, okay, what do you have in mind when you pick up that part? Okay, it says cry here, scream here, it says holler there, whatever it says. You have to deliver that because that's what we're forced to do. But in that, even though that's kind of tight, what can you bring to it that's a little different? Be a little bold, make a little extra. If it's a cop, now because women can be cop, there's a cop with a headache. Is it a cop who's had to leave her kid this morning with somebody she doesn't know? What's going on? You're just a cop. You can't play a cop. You got to play a person that has either issues or disappointments or happiness. Something's going on with that person. There's always something going on with us, no matter what it is. And that's what I'm a student of human behavior. How do people behave? How do people walk when they're not happy? How do you walk when you're walking into something you're excited about? What do you expect on the other side of the door? And every single scene, you're going to be hit in the face. You're going to expect a party. You're going to walk in and get a hit in the face. Okay. What is that about? You got to, the fun is finding those things. Then you've got a person. And it's exciting. And you're not nervous. You can't be, because you now have built something that's yours. So primarily, without going on that long, I might just say, look for something that's you in that, because it's different than somebody else. You see it when you see an actor replace another actor in something, and you've seen both performances. You see vastly different goings on with that person. And that's what we want to see. We want to be able, the audience will lean in that way. Otherwise, they push back.
Let me ask you this. Are you aware that almost every TV show and movie you've ever made is now available either on DVD or on a streaming platform? How does it make you feel to know that people are still enjoying your work, that future generations will continue to enjoy your performances forever? How does that feel?
It's amazing. People stop me and tell me they just saw this and that. Mission is how old? And it still has resonance. People, yesterday, a guy in the market was just, he said, well, I'm up to the one where you, oh, okay. Because he's obviously,
He's binge watching.
That's it. Nice guy in the market.
Well, how does that feel when you know that everything you've done?
It's very nice. It's very nice. How can you argue with it? It's a wonderment. It's a wonder. There's so much media. There's so much stuff on. We now can see 180 things anytime we want to with that magic machine. It's just. But if they were looking at that or seeing that one or that one, it was just yesterday somebody told me about. Oh, we were talking about the Smothers Brothers. Somebody remembered I'd done one of those, or a couple of them, I think. And I was saying I played the Empress of all the Russians. And he played Rasputin. And the boys were the brothers Karamazov. Now, they don't do that kind of stuff anymore on television, but it was pretty funny stuff. And I love doing all that. I'm no more for serious work, not for comedy. But I love
Well, wait a minute. What about Gilligan's Island?
Oh, yes. Olga Schmidt.
I mean, that's one of your funniest performances. So how would you like to be remembered by the world, Barbara?
Oh, I don't know. I don't have that. I don't know. I guess most, in terms of performances, I don't know. In terms of the literacy program, that I care about. I don't care. We all went to a grammar school and had somebody's name on it. We didn't know who the heck that person was. A lot of life by now, a whole kaleidoscope of some wonderful things and some incredibly horrible things, and the human being is capable of both.
Well, I love the fact that you still have that wonderment about your craft. You still are very much in the moment, not only on stage and on screen, but in your own life.
Yes.
And it's been such a pleasure meeting you, Barbara, and having this chance to ask you about your career. I know you don't give a lot of interviews, and I'm so grateful you agreed to appear on our show. Thank you so much.
Well, it was my pleasure. It was lovely talking to you. So there.
Thank you so much.
All good thoughts.
Our guest has been the extraordinarily talented and wonderful Miss Barbara Bain. My name is Harvey Brownstone. Thank you to my producer, Steve Silver, my director of programming, Robert Monaghan, my PR directors, Eileen Shapiro and Jimmy Starr, and my entire team at the XPTV1 network in the UK. Thank you all for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out all the great interviews on the Harvey Brownstone Interviews YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted.